Hello everyone, welcome back to Strawberry Podfix. Sorry for the long wait, I was feeling a little under the weather, but I've got some tea and we're ready to read. This is Not Quite Twins by Lunar Hartwood, Chapter 3. What the hell was that this weekend? Izuku didn't run away fast enough to escape Kachan, his lackey snickering nearby. What? Izuku asked nervously, backing into the wall. He can't get away without throwing punches. This is bad. He can't fight Kachan. He'll get in trouble for fighting. And Kachan would be furious if Izuku fought back. He knew about Hitoshi being his foster brother now, too. What if he went after him because Izuku can fight back and has figured out chi blocking? It would almost be not the time. Don't mutter. That brainwashing kid isn't your neighbor, Kachan hissed. That freak is your newest foster brother. I didn't want anyone to bother him, Izuku said, hunching in on himself. People don't like me. I didn't want... Hey, what are you doing? What? Kachan started, turning around. Let him go. Kachan let go of Izuku and stepped back as Tsubasa and Fushiguro stepped forward. Fushiguro using his incredibly interesting quirk, honestly, to trap Izuku, while a furious Tsubasa stepped towards Hitoshi, raising a fist to punch. Izuku was not going to let that happen. Before he could even register what he was doing, Izuku grabbed onto Fushigiro's wrist, quickly reaching forward and tugging him, surprising the boy as Izuku slammed him into the wall, stunning the boy momentarily before Izuku darted towards Tsubasa, grabbing onto his uniform and yanking him back, stopping the fist from landing seconds before as Izuku quickly hit a few spots along Tsubasa's spine, causing the boy to yelp in shock and crumble into the ground in a heap. What the? Hitoshi said, eyes wide in shock. What the fuck? Kachan yelled. He'd been broken out of the control. Probably when Hitoshi lost concentration before turning to attack Izuku. Still not completely thinking straight, Izuku ducked the blast, landing a few shots in certain spots, wrist, right by elbow, strike harder there than wrist, near shoulder, causing Kachan's arm to go limp, unable to use his quirk in that arm, surprising the boy for long enough for Izuku to grab his left arm and pull him off balance, maneuvering his arm behind his back, palm towards his back as Kachan was pushed and pinned to the ground. Izuku's knee in the small of his back, right next to the pinned hand, straining his shoulder and ribcage. What the fuck? Kachan yelled as Izuku looked at Hitoshi, Fushiguro staring in shock as well, unsure of what just happened. Are you alright? Izuku asked. Am I alright? When were you going to tell me you could do that? Hitoshi asked. Was that a quirk? Fushiguro squeaked. What's going on? A teacher asked, coming around the corner. Midoriya, what did you do? You know what? No, principal's office now. All of you. Izuku quickly scrambled off Kachan's back, debating on helping him up, but instead of going over to Hitoshi as Fushiguro poked at Tsubasa, Hey dude, get up, Fushiguro said. I can't move, Tsubasa said, clearly freaking out. You'll be able to in about 5 to 10 minutes, Izuku said. Your wings, on the other hand, take about a day or so, probably. How the fuck did you do that? Kachan hissed. Midoriya, you shouldn't be starting fights and hitting other kids, the teacher said. They cornered him. Hitoshi said, We can talk about this in the principal's office, the teacher hissed, before reaching and getting Tsubasa to stand up, only for the boy to crumble again. The teacher sighed, opting to carry the boy instead. I would like to see the camera footage of this fight, please. Hitoshi nudged at Izuku slightly, but the other boy was still looking at the ground, as he had been since all 5 boys had been told to sit in the office. Tsubasa's wings completely limp, while Bakugo was flexing his hands, his left hand setting off explosions, while his right wasn't. And where had that come from? That was a quirk. But Izuku didn't have a quirk. He would have told Hitoshi by now if he did, right? And Inko and Hisashi would have mentioned it, surely. Hopefully. After about a month and a half, Hitoshi would have had some kind of idea if Izuku had a quirk, but that didn't explain what happened back there. That shouldn't be possible without a quirk. Granted, if anyone could do it, it would probably be Hitoshi's foster brother. I'm not entirely sure why, the principal started. Hitoshi leveled the principal with a glare that immediately shut him up. As stated in your school handbook, parents are allowed to request security footage in moments such as this, as long as all students and parents involved are informed of this. And it looks like we're all present here. You made us sign this contract at the start of Izuku's time here, and you made us sign it again when Hitoshi started, Inko added, so I strongly suggest that you get that footage pulled up for us so we can see what happened with our own eyes. Aren't there testimonies enough? The principal asked. Midoriya attacked. According to Hitoshi, he was cornered, and it was self-defense. I'm more likely to take his side here. I know my son, Inko said. And yet, Midoriya won't say a word about it. He knows he's guilty here, the principal said. Footage now, Inko said. You don't want to get sued over this, I'm sure. The principal immediately turned to his computer and started to type to pull up the files needed. Inko walked over and gently pat Izuku and Hitoshi's heads. And neither of you are hurt, right? I'm fine, Hitoshi said, nudging Izuku, who only shook his head. Your kid hurt ours, Tsubasa's mom said. Oh, Izuku couldn't hurt a fly, Mitsuki scoffed. I'm not sure what kind of mix-up was present, and I mean no offense, but does Hitoshi have an illusion quirk that could have caused this? Don't you dare accuse my son of this, Inko started. I have the video pulled up, the principal said, turning his computer around to show everyone. The video started with Bakugo using his quirk as he cornered Izuku against the wall, the other two behind him snickering, and the incident played out. So as you can see, the principal started. Inko slowly looked at him, and the principal stopped before Inko turned to Bakugo. Katsuki, she said. Hitoshi did not like that tone in her voice. Quirk usage is not allowed in such a manner. Why did you use it to corner my son? Oh, quirks activate on accident all the time. I'm sure you would, the principal started as Inko turned to glare at him, and he immediately went quiet as she turned to Tsubasa and Fushihiro's parents. I'm not sure why you two think that it's all right for your kids to act like that. Tsubasa, you were going to punch Hitoshi. You may be 10 years old, but that doesn't mean that you wouldn't get in trouble for that. And Fushiguro, you moved to pin Izuku against the wall. Principal, Hitoshi didn't do anything, and Izuku only acted in self-defense. Therefore, the fact that you were going to give my sons detention and let these three off without even a warning is despicable when they started the fight, Inko said. My son can't even move his wings right now, Tsubasa's mom said. And I still can't use my quirk. Deku, what the fuck were you hiding a quirk for? Bakugo stated, moving to stand. His left hand flashed with explosions. Katsuki, sit, Mitsuki snapped, and immediately Bakugo was back in his chair and silent. I have to agree, a quirk like that. I was under the impression that Midoriya didn't have a quirk. Would you mind explaining that? The principal asked, and everyone looked at Izuku. Izuku? Hitoshi said quietly, and Izuku hunched his shoulders and lightly shook his head. Not a quirk, Izuku whispered, but it might as well have been a shout with how quiet the room went. I don't have a quirk. Then what the hell? Fushigiro's mom started. Midoriya, I'm disappointed that you would lie about this. What you pulled back there couldn't be anything but a quirk, the principal scolded. I'm not lying, Izuku said. Detention for a week, the principal said. Oh, hell no, Inko said. You can't seriously be making my son be in detention when he was defending himself. He's a troublemaker, Mrs. Midoriya, the principal said. I'm sure that Bakugo had a good reason for cornering him like that, and we don't have audio of the incident, so Shinso must have done something to provoke him. We're done here. Izuku won't be serving detention, Inko said. Suspension, then? The principal smirked. I'm pulling Izuku and Hitoshi from your school. Expect to be hearing from my law office soon, Inko said, looking at her sons, who were both shocked. Let's go. Hitoshi quickly got up, Izuku standing a few seconds later. Hitoshi reached over and took their backpacks, glaring at the principal before the four left the office quickly, walking to the parking lot and getting into Inko and Hitoshi's car. You two promise that you aren't injured? Inko asked, looking at the two as she got in the passenger seat, already taking out her phone to send a text. I'm fine, Hitoshi said. Izuku just hummed, looking at his lap after he buckled his seat. No injuries, Izuku? Hisashi asked, fully turning to look at his son. No, Izuku whispered. So, what? Hisashi trailed off. I don't want to talk about it, Izuku whispered. It was silent for a full minute. We can talk about it later then, Hisashi said. After a nap. Does that sound good? Izuku hummed. All right, we'll start looking for new schools in the area and let your social worker know of this, Hitoshi, Inko said. We'll start looking into quirk discrimination policies and such when we get home. You're sending me away? Hitoshi asked quietly. No, of course not, Inko said. You're staying here for as long as you want. we'll enroll both of you in a different elementary school in the area. It might be a bit of a commute, but I refuse to have either of my sons at that school any longer. I don't care what Mitsuki does. Oh, she's making me so mad right now, accusing you of using your quirk to try to get her son in trouble. What was Katsuki thinking, using his quirk like that? It's not legal, and yes, quirk accidents happen, especially in younger children, but Katsuki should be better than this by now. She turned to the front again and looked at her phone. My law firm has already gotten complaints about Aldera School District, so we're going to pull some footage immediately and start a case about that. Either way, you're not returning there, so you don't have to worry about all that, she sighed, clicking on something on her phone. I wonder if a private school would be better. Don't they usually have a better record about bullying and such? Aren't those expensive, though? Hitoshi asked. There's more public schools around here. It would be worth it if you're both both healthy and happy, Inko said immediately said. You're my sons, and I refuse to let you be hurt like this. Hitoshi paused, then smiled at that. Okay. Good, Inko said. Right as they walked into the door, Izuku beelined for his room and shut and locked the door, curling up on his bed and hugging Catmite tightly to his chest, as he started to silently cry. Mom and Dad were going to hate him, not just yet, but they would. A quirkless kid was one thing, but one that could stop people from using their quirks, one that could take someone down in an instant. Mom didn't exactly approve of his choice to be a hero, and Dad would rather he was an analyst just like he was. That was one of the reasons he hid this. Sure, it was also so he could defend himself against the meaner foster kids, but he'd passed that a while ago. And what if Hitoshi hated him over this too? What if Hitoshi wanted to leave too? Izuku couldn't handle it if Hitoshi decided to leave. He was Izuku's favorite foster sibling. He was the nicest one that had come through the house. Might be the nicest one to ever come through the house. He was surely disgusted with Izuku now. Izuku messed up. Izuku messed up. Izuku messed up. There was a knock on his door. Izuku? Sweetie, can I come in? Izuku stayed quiet, pulling his covers over his head and curling in on himself more. I'm going to order takeout. I'll get you some katsudan and come get you when it gets here, Inko said through the door, and Izuku could hear her walk away. Izuku buried his face in his pillow and silently cried himself to sleep. Hey there, buddy. Izuku woke up, but he didn't bother opening his eyes as his dad shook him awake. Izuku, food's here. Katsudan, your favorite, Dad said. There's also a cool fight going on the news. Mom said we can eat in the living room today. I'm not hungry, Izuku whispered, pulling his covers back over his head. Buddy, you need to eat, Dad said softly. I'm not hungry, Izuku repeated. Then just the news? Dad asked hopefully. I saw All Might. I just want to sleep, Izuku said sharply. Dad paused, and Izuku felt bad. He should apologize. Okay, buddy, Dad said, getting up slowly. We'll put your katsudan in the fridge for you, okay? Just come talk when you're ready, okay? Izuku hummed. Dad waited for a few seconds before quietly leaving the room and closing the door. When am I leaving? The two adults looked at Hitoshi. You're not, Inko said, immediately setting her chopsticks down. We said that earlier. You're not leaving here. You were just saying that, though I know that you were, Hitoshi said, looking down at the table. Is Miss Sakura on her way? I can go pack my stuff. Hitoshi, Hizashi said, you're staying with us for as long as you want to. We want it to be forever, as far as we're concerned. You're already our son, not just our foster kid at this point. Izuku's no longer our oldest, Inko joked. The adoption papers won't be going through fast enough when we can start on them. Hitoshi looked at the two of them. You're serious? Of course we are, Hitoshi, Inko said. You're a part of this home that we've been looking for years now, and we're so happy that we have you here now. That's if you want to stay, of course. If you don't want to, I want to stay here forever, Hitoshi blurted out. I don't want to leave, Mom, Dad. I don't want to leave. I don't want to ever leave. The two were almost immediately next to him and pulling him into a tight hug. Then you're staying here, Inko said. I'll call Miss Sakura and let her know. Tea break. I forgot I had my tea with me. I cleaned off my table so I wouldn't knock things over this time. Anyways, back to the fic. Hey, Izuku didn't say anything, hugging Catmite a little tighter. Don't ignore me, Hitoshi said, plopping down on Izuku's bed, fully laying down and flinging his arm over the bundle that was Izuku. Crazy day, huh? Izuku hummed. Hitoshi groaned, sitting up and yanking the blanket back. Come on, get up. Mom and Dad went to their room, still looking into a new school for us and all, so you need to eat. You need to eat 3 meals every single day, or whatever you said that one time when I asked where your training routine came from. You haven't done the second half of it either. I'm guessing, so up and at 'em. We can talk about whatever the hell happened today. I don't wanna, Izuku said. Too bad, Hitoshi said, grabbing onto Izuku under his arms and dragging him all the way to the kitchen, forcing him to sit at the table as he reached into the fridge. Do you want to eat your katsudon cold or heated up? I'm not hungry, Izuku said. Warmed up it is, Hitoshi said, putting the food in the microwave and starting it, grabbing chopsticks and setting them next to Izuku. You're still wearing your uniform. Huh. Gross. It's, 10 at night? He yawned. You can go to bed, you know, Izuku said. Nah, I think I'll sit up with you. I'm tired, but I don't think I'm sleeping after today, Hitoshi said, leaning against the counter and staring at Izuku. So, when were you going to tell me that you could do that whole whatever it is you did today? I knew you could fight, but I didn't know you could do that. When were you going to teach me that? You didn't need to know, Izuku whispered. That was the first time I actually used it against someone. I shouldn't have. Well, you definitely saved my butt from getting beat, Hitoshi said. I'm glad you did. Thank you. Hitoshi paused, then looked up and blinked at him. Huh? Thank you, Hitoshi repeated. Seriously, I don't want to have to deal with the black eye. And like Mom said, they started it, so no trouble for us. Hopefully our next school will be better, huh? Izuku looked down at the table. Yeah. The microwave beeped, and Hitoshi grabbed the food, setting it in front of Izuku and sitting next to him. Do you think Bakugo's still gonna come visit? Mom and Dad seem pretty mad at him. Auntie Mitsuki is Mom's best friend, has been for a really long time, Izuku said. I don't think that's going to change. Darn, Hitoshi said. Well, I guess one can dream. He paused for a second, then reached over and smacked Izuku upside the head, causing Izuku to flinch and turn to glare at him. What was that for? Izuku said, rubbing the back of his head. Stop moping around, Hitoshi said. Get your head back here and stop. I don't know what you were thinking, but you're overthinking about something, so walk me through it. I'm not overthinking, Izuku pouted. Yes, you are, Hitoshi said. You can't just avoid us for an entire day and worry Mom and Dad because you think something is wrong. So, what's up? They're mad at me, Izuku said. Hitoshi snorted. No, they aren't. They're worried, not mad. A little proud, too, I think. Keeping yourself safe and all that. They don't want me to be a hero and learn to fight like this. Izuku started. Izuku, they don't care about that, Hitoshi said. Mom doesn't want me to be a hero. She thinks it's too dangerous for me, Izuku said. And Dad would rather I be a Quirk analyst like he is. They only care that you're happy and healthy. But you're working towards both, Hitoshi said. Besides, if you're so worried about that, just talk to them about it tomorrow or something. They'll understand, or something. He nudged Izuku. So, stop moping and just talk. He tapped Izuku's food. And eat up. Then let's go to bed past our bedtime by now, huh? I mean, you've been sleeping since we got home, so you might not be tired, but I sure am. Insomnia won't let me sleep for a while, though, and I don't usually talk this much. So how about you explain what happened today? Some quirkless thing, or can I learn it? It would definitely help in underground heroics. Quirk nerves, Izuku said. Still don't know what those are, Hitoshi said, but gestured for Izuku to continue. Izuku took a big bite of food as he thought for a few seconds. Everyone with a quirk has an extra set of nerves called quirk nerves. I don't have them, since they're specifically meant to control quirks, but everyone with one does, all over their body, concentrated around where their quirks are. But still everywhere. Yours would be concentrated around your throat, for example. Same with Dad's, while Mom's would be concentrated around her hands, similar to Kachan's. However, they aren't just in those spots. Instead spanning the entire nervous system closer to the skin than regular nerves like mine are, which means they're easier to hit and knock off balance, causing the quirk to fail in use and can even lead to temporary paralysis in the affected area, such as Kachan's arm, where I only affected the nerves in his arm, and Tsubas's entire body as I hit his spine, which controls all the nerves in the body, leading to his collapsing. I could also be affected with regular pressure points, but I have less targets on me as a result of my lack of quirk nerves. It's an interesting concept based on chi blocking, but people aren't studying the downsides of quirk nerves, instead only focusing on the benefits. Case in point of being able to control quirks with ease. He stopped himself, taking another bite. Sorry, muttering. I think I'm getting used to your muttering. I actually understood a chunk of that, Hitoshi said. So, quirk nerves, huh? He lifted his arm and touched his neck. Then he looked at his arm. I'm not sure what you meant by all over, though. I mean, why would they be when... Izuku grabbed Hitoshi's arm and ran his thumb along a certain spot, causing Hitoshi to tense up. Feel right there? Then feel that spot on my arm, Izuku said, holding out his arm. Hitoshi paused, then felt his arm, then Izuku's. What the hell? Hitoshi felt his arm again. There was a slight bump there that wasn't on Izuku's arm. If he pressed down, it felt weirder, but it didn't on Izuku's arm. What the hell? Hitoshi whispered, feeling up and down Izuku's arm. What the hell? Quirk nerves, Izuku shrugged, taking another bite. Mom's are more pronounced in her arm, while yours would be in your throat. It makes them harder to specifically target since, well, it would be me just punching you in the throat, which gets a desired result. Anyway, you out of the fight. The throat is more squishy than the arm, so the nerves have more leeway to move, so it's harder to take your quirk out of the picture. Same with Dad's. I'll keep that in mind. What I'm hearing is protect my throat if we ever get into a bad fight, Hitoshi said. Smart idea, anyway, Izuku said. A person's throat is an easy weakness to exploit unless they have a quirk that specifically protects their throat or something, like Crimson Riot or Crest. Interesting quirks, a hardening quirk, and shield. I wonder how the quirk nerves would be affected by a hardening quirk. The skin would be harder to deal with, so the quirk nerves would be protected, as well as his throat, so I would have to find a different solution to facing him. Perhaps going for the eyes or trying to figure out if there are parts of his body that aren't as hardened as the rest of him, such as his legs or torso, more likely torso. Or perhaps his back, places that would be less likely to be right in the line of fire. I wonder if he can move around what parts of his body are hardened. His spine would be a weakness potentially if he can't harden his entire body at the same consistency or fast enough if I were to get around him and land a few lucky punches. That's almost a fight I would pay to see. But you're 10. You shouldn't be fighting pro heroes, Hitoshi said. If I fight a villain with a hardening quirk, I'll have to find an on-the-spot solution, so it's better to think about it now. It's good, Izuku said. It's good practice. Hitoshi hummed. Fair point. How would you defeat an eraser quirk, then? Can't erase what's not there, Izuku said. And based on Eraserhead, assuming the person with the eraser quirk knows how to fight hand-to-hand, since that's what it comes down to, the opponent would likely be more experienced in fighting than I am, but chi blocking isn't exactly well known, so it would come down to the difference in experience, and if I can catch them by surprise enough to hit a few points on their arm, take one arm out of the fight and surprise them enough to stumble, then go for the knockout and arrest assuming that it's a villain. All right, Hitoshi smirked. Assuming you ever fight someone with a similar quirk, that is. Probably impossible, huh? Nothing is impossible, Izuku said, a light in his eyes. He's not in his room, Inko whispered to Hisashi, the two of them panicking a little bit. He said he was still tired. Oh God, what if he ran away? What if he's gone and we can't find him? Where would Izuku even go? Hisashi said, stepping into the living area, and immediately stopping, causing Inko to bump into him. What? Inko started peeking around him. Both of them immediately relaxed to see Izuku and Hitoshi curled up on the couch, Izuku's notebook in front of them, falling from Izuku's grip as the two boys leaned against each other fast asleep. Inko immediately pulled out her phone and took a few pictures. We should get them to bed? I don't think I want to move them, Hisashi whispered with a shaky smile on his face, some happy tears in his eyes. It's been a long day. Sleeping on the couch might be fine if they're both comfortable. He stepped over and took one of the blankets, carefully tucking it around the two before grabbing the notebook and closing it and setting it on the table. Inko stepped over and gently kissed both of their foreheads before the two adults went to bed. Hey, Mom? Yes? Inko asked immediately, turning around and smiling at Izuku, who was rubbing his eyes. I'm sorry, Izuku said. There's nothing for you to be sorry for, Inko said, giving him a hug. Katsuki and those boys shouldn't have cornered you. I'm proud of you and I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself and Hitoshi. Thanks, Mom, Izuku said. Now, mind telling me what you did yesterday? Inko asked, pulling back slightly as she continued with breakfast. I hit Kacchan and Tsubasa's quirk nerves, Izuku said. Quirk nerves? Inko asked. I've heard you mention them before. Can they really do that, though? If you hit hard enough, you can cancel out quirks for an entire day, Izuku said. Paralyzed for 5 to 10 minutes, too. You don't need a quirk to do that? Inko said. Nope, Izuku said. He paused for a second, then sighed. I want to be a hero still. I never really stopped wanting to be a hero, you know? So I've been teaching myself how to fight, been learning how to cancel out quirks, different martial arts styles, how to break down quirks to get around them. I've been strength training, learning parkour. I'm sorry I never told you. How? Inko asked. The internet and practicing after school and on Sundays, Izuku said. So that's where you've been, Inko said. No martial arts studios? No, Izuku said. Didn't want you to know about it, and I can't exactly pay for it. We'll pay for it, Inko said. I'm guessing Hitoshi's been learning with you too? Yeah, Izuku said, then paused. He's the best one yet. Inko smiled, patting his head. I agree. We're gonna adopt him. Inko, we've had Hitoshi for less than 2 months. Izuku said he's the best one yet, and we already love him. He's our son, even started calling us mom and dad already. Miss Sakura can pry him from my cold, dead hands. Hisashi sighed fondly. Okay, we can bring it up with him. How's Izuku doing? Apparently he's been teaching himself to fight. That thing we saw was him hitting at quirk nerves to temporarily paralyze someone and stop their quirk, Inko said. I'm sorry, how did he learn to do that? Taught himself, Inko said, and I'm guessing he's going to teach Hitoshi too. She shook her head. Those two are going to take the hero world by storm. I can already feel it. We're enrolling them in an actual fighting class instead of letting them rely on internet videos. Hopefully one near their new school. So we'll have to look into that one too. Sounds good enough for me, Hisashi said, kissing her quickly before grabbing his computer. I think the Nabu school district has a martial arts studio near it, right? Inko reached over and gently closed his computer. We can look into that later. For now, let's just go to bed. It's been a long day. And don't you have a meeting early tomorrow? I know I do. Yeah, I'm not a fan of leaving the boys home alone all day, though, Hisashi said. I'm sure they'll be fine for the day. Izuku and Hitoshi are both responsible, Inko said. My meeting should only last a few hours, though, so it's not like we'll be gone all day, right? That's fair, Hisashi said. Quirk nerves are typically closer to the surface around joints, but it can depend on the person for exact points. However, they're typically in a few certain points along the arms, legs, and back, Izuku said, pointing at a diagram, and this is what Inko came home to. Her two boys in the living room as Izuku taught Hitoshi about quirk nerves. If you hit too hard, you can run the risk of permanent paralysis, which isn't something you want to do and all that, heroes or whatever. So instead, you have to calculate the exact amount of pressure you're going to want to use based on muscular and fat mass in the areas and how close that would cause the nerves to be to the skin. In order to do that, you would have to know several factors or be able to make a close enough estimate on the spot and apply the right amount of pressure. I made an equation for that. And how do you do that this fast enough? You did this in an instant, and you didn't even have practice. I'm going to redo that. I forgot a couple of words. And how do you do this fast enough? Hitoshi groaned. You did this in an instant, and you didn't even practice. It's less complicated than it looks, Izuku said. All you really have to do is make a few assumptions on someone's weight based on their mass, and from there you can see how much of that is muscle, at least, where you're looking to hit at, and you figure out how that's going to affect how hard you need to hit. I'm gonna make snacks, Ingo whispered as she stepped into the kitchen, both boys whipping their heads up to stare at her. Louder, she said, you might want to work on noticing people around you better. That's a good point, Izuku said. Spatial awareness is a great idea. He took out his phone and started typing. All right, let's figure out the best way to train that. It'll do both of us some good. Boys, we need to talk. Immediately, both boys sat down at the kitchen table, looking back and forth between Mom and Dad. What's up, Mom? Inko asked. That's not the right name. What's up, Mom? Izuku asked. We found a new school for you two, Nabu Elementary School. You start next week, Mom said. It's not too far, and it's actually closer to my law firm, so I'll be bringing you on the first day. There's a martial arts studio near it, but we'll wait a little while before getting you set up in classes there. Nabu? Izuku asked, taking out his phone and looking it up. The reviews on it don't make it seem The reviews on it make it seem better than Aldera in terms of teachers and discrimination, even if they only really do much about physical bullying rather than verbal, according to some of the reviews, although they do typically try to curb that. Interesting. Got the uniforms already? Hitoshi asked. I'm picking them up tomorrow after work, Mom said. But there's one more thing we need to talk about. Hisashi reached down and picked up a large stack of papers and gently pushed them over to the boys. Hitoshi, these are for you. Huh? Hitoshi asked, picking up the first paper. He immediately looked at the two with wide eyes as Izuku leaned over and scanned the papers, eyes lighting up with excitement. Really? Izuku said, almost vibrating in his seat. That's awesome! You mean it? Hitoshi asked, looking at Mom and Dad. Of course, Mom said. When we said you can stay here forever, we meant it. Normally we'd have to wait some more months. But Miss Sakura said we can speed up the process. It won't be done by the time you start Nabu Elementary, but it will be soon. Hitoshi immediately got up and walked over, giving both of them a big hug. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Hitoshi sobbed, burying his face into Hisashi's shoulder. Izuku got up and walked around, joining the family hug. And that was Chapter 3. Tell me what you think. And maybe some feedback on my videos. And like if you like the videos, and maybe subscribe if you want to. You'll get notifications for your favorite fanfics, and yeah.